you and just hear your thoughts about it. It was a fun show for us to do for sure. Y'all have heard me say it many times on the show. They're not making any more land, but we at Southeastern Land Group work really hard to make the process of buying and selling land easy for you. So when you get ready, please give us a call. And Lord willing, we'll do this again next week. Join us for more of the Land Show.
WDNG, 1450 AM.
And W236CQ 95.1 FM, Anniston.
95.1 The Mountain.
Anniston Oxford's classic station.
The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start.
more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, let's get into it here and welcome in. I'm Steve West along with my co-host and the resident driver, Matt Nicholson. Producer John off again this weekend, probably again throughout the rest of this month as, well, my microphone goes away from me. As television duties take him away because, hey, it's the height of basketball season and the network that he is charge of dealing with here in the city of Birmingham and the metropolitan area, they're heavily into it. So next month is when it's looking like it, he says. Things will start to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have him back here in early February. So think about it. That's 2 more weeks from now.
Yep, sure is.
2 more weeks from now, we're going to get ready to go with the Cup Series on the track. There's a soapbox involved. We'll get to that. But the racing for 2024 actually got started last Saturday in Mexico City when Formula E got things rolling. Their 10th season, by the way. Turned out to be the Pascal Wehrlein show, the ex-F1 driver who had experience on that track, Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Even in the modified form that Formula E uses, seemed really comfortable on the track. Claimed the pole, rolled out, dominated the race itself, led all the laps, and held the lead of just over a second when the checkered flag was shown to the field. So, yeah, it was all Wehrlein. Sebastian Buemi was second, trailed by Nick Cassidy, Maximilian Gunther, Mitch Evans, Jean-Eric Verne. We'll get back to him in a minute. JQ, Stoffel Van Dorn, Jake Dennis, Norman Nato. Now, since the driver points mirror the finish, we're going to talk about team points, and we'll worry about driver points after race number 2. Tag Heuer Porsche leads with 28. You got 26 for Jaguar TCS, and Vision is third with 18. They're no longer in Vision Virgin, by the way. 12 for Maserati. DS Racing has also 12. And then you got 6 for the Noah McLaren team. Andretti holds 3. The rest of the teams right now, Nissan, Mahindra, ABT Cupra, and ERT didn't score a point in the season opener, so they're all sitting there with big goose eggs. And then, of course, the Chili Bowl Nationals happened last weekend. We were talking about that here on the show. When all was said and done, Logan Seavey claiming his second straight win in the prestigious indoor dirt track event. NASCAR drivers didn't really fare all that well. And how I mean by that is you have drivers that are either currently or have in the past run in NASCAR, making the A feature, but suffering DNFs. Really, it was just Tanner Thorson and Chase Briscoe. They were the only 2 who got that far through the ladder.
Yeah, from everything I've seen, the track, they did something different to track prep, and it caused the track to go different, and a lot of people struggled.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. So, but congratulations to Logan Seavey. I mean, let's face it,
sure.
2 straight Chili Bowls, ain't nothing to sneeze at.
Well, within a technicality a little bit, you could call Logan Seavey a past NASCAR driver because he ran some of the dirt races for KBM.
That's true. So
and Toyota.
Yeah. All right. We noted, of course, Pascal Wehrlein claiming the pole, then leading the Oncook Mexico Grand Prix from start to finish to begin 2024 with a win, but it wasn't all tequilas and tacos. I could say wine and roses, but that just seems inappropriate for Mexico. His car and the car of defending series champion Jake Dennis were confiscated for some undefined, as Formula E put it, quote-unquote technical infraction. It was later clarified as, quote, not respecting the homologated primary throttle pedal map, unquote, whatever the heck that means, Formula E. Care to take a stab at that one there, resident driver?
I'll bypass that one. I have no clue.
Not respecting the homologated primary throttle pedal map.
Well, let me see if I can define this a little bit. Throttle pedal mapping would be something similar, I would say, possibly, to where when you're timing your throttle to open up your carburetor or your throttle body.
Mm-hmm. Or in this case, the electric motor.
Yeah, hints a little bit. So, yeah.
Okay.
Probably going to be something related to that if I had to say.
All right. Well, either way, race stewards and officials took some 4 hours, and after that, they said no further action was going to be taken and the results would stand. Okay.
All right.
It's a lot of hubbub over a whole lot of nothing, as it turns out, I guess.
It sounds like.
And then with his 6th place result, as we noted in the top 10 rundown in the first race of the year, Jean-Eric Verne becomes only the 2nd driver to claim 1,000 championship points in Formula E in their career and in the Young Series. Now, as noted, the series is only in year number 10. So to only have 2 drivers claim that number, not really overtly surprising. Really hasn't been dominated by any one driver as of yet. That may change if the series continues. I mean, you think about what we saw last night, and we'll get to that here in a second. Sooner or later, you're going to get somebody that's going to step up, and they're just going to have everybody's number. I mean, at this point in time, they're already, for example, the Cup Series just debuted for the 2022 season, the Gen 7 car. 10 seasons in now, not even 10 full, 9 full seasons in, just starting 10th season, we're already in Gen 3 and looking ahead to Gen 4 on the Formula E car.
Right.
So things are so rapidly changing over there, I think it's really hard for any one team and or driver to get a really good grasp on this car to go out and dominate like that.
Very valid point, because if you keep shuffling the deck of cards, let me see if I can use this analogy in a good way.
Okay.
If you keep shuffling the deck of cards, it's impossible to, your odds of hitting the royal flush keep getting higher and keep getting lower and lower and lower and lower and lower.
Stacked against you.
Yeah, stacked against you. So really nobody can usher in an era of dominance if they keep shuffling the deck of cards.
Which, for the ultimate in competitiveness, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you look at the results and from one week to the next, or one race to the next, as the case is, since they don't race every week or even every other week, you don't know who's going to win. I mean, it's not like it's not like Kyle Busch running in a Craftsman Truck Series race and we go, well, we already know who we think is going to win, so we'll pencil in Kyle Busch. Or in the case of last year in Formula One, oh, hey, it's another race, it's another Max Verstappen win. In this case, we don't know. We legitimately don't know.
Right.
And NASCAR has done, you can make all the critical comments about it that you want, but the truth of the matter is, in the Cup Series, you don't know who's going to win from week to week.
You really don't. You don't, especially in this new era of new car, because the car is so leveled out. Let's use that term.
Okay.
Because it levels out the playing field and everybody is, in a way, on equal equipment and equal footing. It's just a matter of your respective technology and research that you put into your car to evolve what you've got.
Yeah. Well, and that'll bring us to maybe one of the last really big-time dominating drivers that we may see in NASCAR's Cup Series history. Because last night, before we get into the myriad of news that we have for this week, take a moment. We'll congratulate, once again, the 3 newest members of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. You might have missed their induction last night, because how NASCAR is allowing this kind of stuff to go, I really don't know. It was only shown on the streaming service Peacock. Now, you might have heard it on MRN radio affiliates, but you won't get it on television unless you had the streaming service Peacock.
Same way NFL's going with some of their streaming for playoffs.
Yep. And think about it this way. NASCAR's doing it not this coming year, but next year with the new television rights deal. 5 races are only going to be on Amazon Prime. So I get it. I get the frustration of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But here's the thing. We're now seeing how this is going to start to roll. Yep. With the number of people that are cutting the cable or cutting off the satellite and going to streaming, they're making that shift.
Because I hate to say it, but in a way, you can get the same stuff, and I'm going to use, well, that they're not sponsorship affiliated with us this show anyway, but example, YouTube TV. You can get the same thing on YouTube TV that you can get on Direct or Dish for over half the price. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with some of those ones. We were talking about it this week on my other show that I do during the week. And what is it? Charter Spectrum, I think. They just announced that they were going to jack up their prices for cable. You want to make people go away from you? Yeah.
That's a good way
to do it. Keep jacking up your prices.
Yeah.
Anyway, off of that soapbox and back over to the congratulations. Of course, Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus hooked together due to their 7 Cup Series titles garnered together as driver and crew chief, along with 81 wins. There were 2 wins that Jimmy Johnson had without Chad Knaus because he was suspended because of rules violations. And there was a win that Chad Knaus has with, who is it, William Byron? That took place after Jimmy Johnson got out of the car. So Jimmy's credited with 83. Chad's got 82 wins?
81.
81 wins, crew chief?
81 because
I thought it was I thought they had 81 together.
They had 80.
So it was 3.
They had 81 wins together. 81 wins together as a duo.
Mm-hmm.
You was right. I had it backwards.
So he's got
Chad's
82
got
as a crew
82 as a crew chief. Jimmy's got 83 as a driver. The only one difference was that 06 Daytona 500 where Darian Grove was crew chief.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Then, of course, we had another Alabama gang member, the third and final member of the original Alabama gang, inducted, Donnie Allison. The picture that you see on CRN Live on YouTube right now is courtesy of the fine folks over at Getty Images. You and I both watched it. We had the chance to, and I mainly wanted to watch because I wanted to see what Donnie Allison was going to say, and he had some really cool things to say, and correctly noted something, 2 things really. Mm-hmm. Got a good laugh out of the fact that he said a lot of people talking about the 1979 Daytona 500 as one of the most important races in NASCAR history, and then he leans in and goes, "It's the most important race in NASCAR history." I can't argue with that.
No.
I mean, you think about all of the aspects of it and all of the things that came together on that particular weekend. It was the first ever live flag-to-flag coverage of a NASCAR race ever. CBS doing it. Ken Squire there. The eastern seaboard of the United States socked in because of a blizzard. And the only live television event going on that Sunday is going to be this Cup Series race that, people in the eastern seaboard have heard of, but how many people had actually had the opportunity to check it out? Now you got the chance to, because what else are you going to do? Do you really feel like going outside and shoveling? No.
No.
And then you get that fight at the end, but even Ken Squire got it wrong. If you listen to what Ken Squire is saying before he says, "and there's a fight," he mentions that it's Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison getting into the fight. It wasn't Donnie. It was Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby and Cale got in the fight.
And Bobby will tell you this, and I've had the chance to interview him probably, I want to say 3 or 4 times at least. And, of course, you have to talk about that Daytona 500.
Sure.
And Bobby says it every time the exact same way, in that Cale went to beating on my fist with his nose.
I've heard that.
And
I have heard that.
Others have picked up on that and run with it as well. Mike Joy not being the least of them. But to have Donnie get up there last night and on the stage correct it and say, "I never swung or hit Cale at all. I wasn't the one in the fight. That was Bobby."
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It really was. He was fantastic. Sad to see that Janet Guthrie couldn't be there in person. Don't know why. Not going to speculate as to why.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think she lives in California or Arizona, and I think she's she's well over the age of 80 and was not able to physically travel.
Yeah, and that's what I figured it was. But again, speculation as to the exact reason why. Not going to get into it. She did take the time and had a video made, and that was great.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was good.
Shav Glick and their honorarium of him going in as the Squire Hall Media Excellence Award winner. That was a great deal. And they did a nice in memoriam of Ken Squire and Cale Yarborough. And then, of course, we got Chad and we got Jimmy. And you noted this just as well as I did. Chad was the second one. Donnie was first. Then they had Chad get up there.
Second one, yeah.
And Chad got to talking about how he's got a connection to right here in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, he does.
And a connection that Matt's pretty familiar with as well, because you had the chance to talk about this gentleman last year when, unfortunately, was it last year?
A
couple years ago when we lost him.
A couple years ago.
In the fact that, and I live there. I mean, you even noted that as the crow flies, I'm only just a few miles away from the shop where all of this was taking place.
Yeah. See, as anybody that did see it, as he noted last night, Chad got his start in NASCAR right here in Alabama. the crew of Stanley Smith, which is home base was out of Chelsea, which everybody knows Stanley is a very well accomplished late model racer, won championships in late model divisions in the weekly racing series, and then would step up and run Cup and Busch races from time to time. Mm-hmm. Well, Chad got his start in 1992, and I could tell this story. Chad lived behind Stanley's house in his shop in a single wide trailer. I remember where that trailer sat because
it's not there, by the way. Anymore.
It's not there anymore. But we came across Stanley and his family for the locals on this side of the state of Alabama on Highway 280, where Sarah Honda sits now, mm-hmm. and Tony Sarah Ford sits. I remember passing by. I think we were going, if I'm not mistaken, we were going to Walmart, if I'm not mistaken, to go get some supplies for the family, for our family and everything. And this was when Walmart was in downtown Sylacauga on Fort Williams, mm-hmm. not on Highway 280.
And not a super center.
No, it was a small Walmart. And we drove by Sarah Honda, and it was Sarah Chevrolet at the time, but now it's Sarah Honda. And I'm looking and I'm going like, wait a minute. What is, and this wasn't, when you typically see a show car come somewhere, you just see a very nice Featherlight dually and an enclosed trailer. No, sure. This was the Featherlight Mac Daddy hauler, mm-hmm. with tractor. And they had the car that was going, where was it going? If I'm not mistaken, that car was going to Atlanta the following week.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. And it was, during the show car, this was the car.
Yeah.
Sitting there, and I'm going, hold up. Mm-hmm. So we went back home, and I told Dad about it. He said, come on, let's go. So we went down there. Stanley, his sons Scotty and Brett were down there. Had a fantastic conversation. I mean, a fantastic conversation. They took me through the entire hauler.
Nice.
Let me sit in the car of all. I'm like, wait, hold up here. 7-year-old me is going berserk.
Sure.
Then we get invited to pit stop practice.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting ready to go. It wasn't Atlanta. It was Michigan.
Okay.
We get invited to go to pit stop practice. Come over to pit stop practice. And you got the people the likes of Chad Knaus over there. Butch Hilton, which is a longtime crew chief of the old Red Horse Racing, and he still works with Tricon. Ronnie Crooks, which he is the former gas man for Joe Gibbs. He jumped around teams, but he's now a shock specialist for Penske Racing. You've got the likes of Felipe Lopez. I'm sure that name rings a bell.
It does indeed for me.
There was what's his name? Doggone it. His name was Les. He was to be a tire changer for Richard Childress. I think he's long retired now. People like that right there, and then there is, and I'm still
a lot of these guys got their start with Stanley.
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
So there are several guys that are on a VHS video at my dad's house somewhere that I will find and have it transformed over to a DVD or something where I can watch it. And 7-year-old me is doing pit stop practice with Chad Knaus on the rear tires of Stanley's car.
Does Chad remember that? That's the question.
Coming back from break, I will elaborate more on that.
I love it. We will indeed talk a little bit more about that. And then when we come back, speaking of video, there's a couple of NASCAR-related things coming out. We're going to talk about one specifically when it comes to Joe Gibbs Racing and pit stops. We'll deal with that. Plus, we got a whole lot of other news from the Cup Series when we come back. And, of course, soapbox time as well. Stay close. We're just underway right here on the Championship Racing Network.
back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Real quick, couple of more notes here on, of course, the congratulations out to Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus, Donnie Allison going into the Hall of Fame. We had the chance on this show in a previous iteration to interview Donnie. Really good guy.
Oh, yeah.
Real easy to talk to. And you want to talk about a guy who's got stories to no end. A lot of fun.
The legends of the sport like him, like Donnie and guys like that, I could sit all day and listen to them tell stories.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it just the old saying, a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
Let me sit like what you would call like a fireside chat.
Yeah.
I would just.
And I'll say this, too. There are interviews that I've had the chance to do over the course of time, and the worst interviews are those where the person who you're asking a question to has 1, 2, and 3 word responses.
Sure.
Because it's really hard to be able to take the answer and then go and build another question off of that. Mm-hmm. One of the best interviews that I've ever had, truth be told, is the play-by-play caller for the Alabama Crimson Tide football team. It's Eli Gold, who's not just that. He's done MRN. He's done hockey. He's done football. He's done basketball. He's done baseball. He's done racing. He's done it all. Mm-hmm. And like Donnie, you ask him a question, and it leads him, Donnie, Bobby Allison is much the same way. Larry McReynolds is much the same way. Had the chance to interview him out when I was doing track announcing at the old Birmingham International Raceway. Thanks for nothing, Larry Lake. I'll say that every time. You ask them a question, and they launch, and they take it over. And you're sitting there going, okay, what information are they giving me that I'm going to go into my next question? And they'll continue to talk about, you'll scratch that question, you'll go, ooh, this is an even better one. Mm-hmm. It's perfect. Those guys are those kind of guys.
Right. Oh, for sure. For sure.
And I appreciate that. You have a little bit more on the Chad Knaus situation.
Yeah, it was the last time I'd seen him and had a conversation with him before was in 1993. Mm-hmm. We saw him at Talladega. He was with Hendrick Motorsports at the time.
Yeah, he had joined the Rainbow Warriors.
He had gotten
pit crew team.
Yeah, he had gotten a photo that my mom had taken that was a color 4x6 photo that she had gotten taken of Jeff Gordon. Chad went up to Jeff and got that picture signed 3 times.
Nice.
Because the first 2 times he tried to sign it in a pen, then he got a Sharpie marker and signed it with a Sharpie. It's still put up. There's a picture with Chad because my sister, she was 5. Yeah, she was 5 at the time. Chad has got my sister picked up, kind of hugging her, laughing, and Mom got a picture of it, and it's put up somewhere. I'll have to find it. When I find them, I'll bring them and show you. It's crazy.
That'll be fun.
But in 2013, ended up crossing paths with him again at Talladega in the 24 hours of Talladega, what it felt like that day.
Yeah.
When we actually finished the race at dark.
Yeah. Where we actually could
dark.
prove you can race without having lights on at the track. You can actually race at Talladega.
Yeah, because it rained all dadgum day.
It did too. Good grief. But we got the race in.
Well, I was in the Cup garage with some of my wife's family. We were standing under the lift gate of Carl Edwards' hauler because they're close friends with Carl Edwards. And I was just standing outside, just enjoying fresh air. And at the time, Jimmy's hauler was parked right beside Carl's. This was before they went to the team parking method like Indycar does. Well, I look up and I see Chad walking, and I thought, this is my time to kind of reconnect with him. Well, I could tell he was in loose, low-key mode. He really wasn't stressed out, edgy or nothing.
That's a good time to talk.
For sure. And I said, Chad, how are you, man? He looked at me like he didn't know who I was. He said, I'm good, man. I said, I looked him square in the eyes. I said, I bet you probably don't remember who I am. And he froze, and he kind of had that, wait a minute, look. And I just started throwing random things out. 1992, Stanley Shop in Chelsea. 7-year-old little boy that was doing pit stop practice with you trying to change tires. And when I said that, he lit up like a kid on Christmas morning, and he just said, oh, my gosh, dude. He said, how have you been? And then just kind of like one of those high five kind of in half hug deals. He said, man, it's good to see you, man. And started asking, How's the family doing?
Yep.
How's mom and dad doing? How's your sister doing? And immediately everything come back to mind.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and then some of my wife's family walked out of the holler, seen me talking to Chad, and then went like, hold up, how do you know him? But Chad's one of the, everybody thinks of Chad on one level or the other. I've known him and my past experiences with him and time that I've known him. He's one of the few that's a really good dude. Really good dude.
2005, Big Dave McDaniel.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people around here know who I'm talking about. Got the chance to work with him as a track announcer at Birmingham International Raceway as well. And he got us over. He got me into helping volunteer for another station here in East Central Alabama to do what we called lovingly MRN Light. And Friday, we were all over everything in practice, back when they used to do practice on Fridays. And again, this is fall 2005. And I'm kind of flying blind here because I'm not really sure what the heck I'm going to do. So I'm just looking for faces I'm going to recognize and see if I can't get interviews.
Sure.
And I just happened to walk by the final tech stage and what car should be going through that tech stage but the 48.
Mm-hmm.
So I stood there for a couple minutes, and I happened to note Chad Knaus is standing there, and I thought, I'll give it a shot. Worst he's going to tell me is no.
Sure.
And that's the way you need to go into interview situations like that. The worst they're going to tell you is no.
Right.
You know, even if they say it in a mean way, the worst they can say is no. So he's doing stuff, and he's writing stuff down, and he's looking around, and finally he's got a moment, and you can tell. He just kind of sighs. He takes a big breath, which tells me everything's kind of wrapping up. And he happens to turn, and he looks at me, and he locks eyes with me. It wasn't just a glance. He locked eyes. So I just kind of pointed at the microphone, and he went, hold up. Sure. Just, give me the 1 minute sign. Okay. So I move over to the side just to make sure that I'm out of the way of everything.
Right.
And they bring the car out, and they're doing final checks, and he's doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, there's no way he's going to remember that I'm over here and that he was willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they started to roll the car the way, and he took a step, and he stopped. And then he started looking around, and I'm like, wonder what he's looking for. And then he found me and walked over, and we did the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget that, because he could have easily just blown me off.
Sure.
I'm literally a nobody. I hadn't even done a PA weekend at Talladega yet. He could have blown me off, but he didn't. He took that time to go ahead and do it. And that was one of the first interviews that I did that day.
Right.
And I went through and I was able to do interviews with like J.D. Gibbs and stuff like that. And I took one more opportunity because they were getting ready to go out from tech and do that practice. And I took one final opportunity and I said, you know what? They're all starting to make their way out on the pit road. I'll make my way out on the pit road. Who knows? I might get lucky. And I'm walking down, and suddenly coming up beside me is Steve Addington, who at that point in time was the crew chief on the 18 car.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, out of the wild blue, said, you got time for an interview? He said, sure. And I'll never forget this. I click the microphone and I say, Steve, with Steve Addington. And before anybody at the main desk could say, okay, we're coming to you next, Big Dave McDaniel got on there and he said, dude, I quit. Because I had gotten so many of the big names that day that Dave was just absolutely ticked off.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun, though. And again,
Yep.
Just memories of people like Chad and Donnie. Haven't really had the chance to talk to Jimmy, but, from everything that we've ever heard, Jimmy is as down to earth as they come to.
Right.
So congratulations to all three of them. Joe Gibbs Racing's got a couple of things this week. The first is that longtime NASCAR sponsor DeWalt Tools is back. They're going to sponsor the number 20 once again, driven by Christopher Bell this coming season. They're going to be primary for 13 of the 36 points races this year, first of which will be the Daytona 500. They'll also be the primary sponsor for the championship weekend in Phoenix among those that were announced, and we're not worried about giving you the entire bit. But, yeah, they're going to bookend this year. Mm-hmm. So big for DeWalt. And then yesterday, as we air this show live, on Saturday, January the 20th, a documentary about the Joe Gibbs Racing pit crew training dropped on YouTube. You can go look for it. It is entitled Chasing Faster, the Next Gen Pit Crew. If you're watching on CRN Live on YouTube right now, wait until after we're done. It details the changes Joe Gibbs Racing came up with when this generation of the Cup Series racer debuted, and it was a new process that was actually being closely watched not only by competitors, but by NASCAR. And when NASCAR said everything was good, a lot of the other teams began to copy it. and a lot of the techniques that Joe Gibbs Racing began to use. So
I've got it's an abbreviated quick list of the verified of the DeWalt races: Daytona, Atlanta, Bristol, Coda, Darlington, Gateway, Nashville, Richmond, Watkins Glen, Bristol 2, Talladega, Charlotte,
Talladega 2.
Phoenix.
Okay, Talladega 2, not Talladega 1.
Yep.
Then there's this bit of sponsorship news. Stewart Haas Racing, a lot of people have been wondering with all of the ones that left with the departure of Eric Almirola and, of course, Kevin Harvick, what were they going to do? Well, we already told you, and Tony Stewart has, in fact, said, we're not hurting. We're sponsorship. We're going to be fine. And one of the longtime sponsors of Josh Berry has come on board. It is Carolina's apparel store, Harrison's. Harrison signed up for 2 races as a primary this season. They tout themselves as Work, Western, and Wow on their website. They also claim to be the Southeast leading Carhartt and Ariat retailers, so I'll take them at their word. Harrison's been a partner with Berry since 2022, his first season in Xfinity Series competition. Again, they're going to be primary for 2 races at Atlanta next month and for the All-Star race. That'll be a nice little coup on that 4-car. We thank Stewart Haas Racing for the look on CRN Live on YouTube.
Some of the ones I've seen of these new Ford cars that are coming out, the way they're doing some of the sponsorship,
Yep.
I don't like the layout of the hoods. They're cluttering them up way too much.
Going to be real interesting to watch as this dark horse model continues.
They're cluttering the hoods up, and when more and more of them start to get revealed and you see more photos of them, you're going to go, huh? They're very cluttered.
Yeah. Yep. Cowlick Racing has their spotter lineup set. Joe White will be pulling double duty this coming year. He's going to be calling what he sees for the 16 Cup Series car, but also for the 11 car in the Xfinity Series. Over on the 31 car in the Cup Series, Frank Delney Jr. is going to be the spotter. He'll also be pulling double duty. He'll add in what he sees for the number 97 Xfinity Series ride. And finally, on Coleman Presley is going to be doing some spotter duty as well. I think I got that number wrong. I don't think it'll be on the 11. What do we have? 31, sorry. So you got Joe White, 11 and 16, Xfinity Cup. Coleman Presley's going to be on the 16 Xfinity Series car.
Correct,
there we go. I knew I was going to screw that up sooner or later, and sure enough, I did. And then Cowlick Racing also announced that longtime sponsor Circle, who claims to be really an everything to everyone beverage, has been signed to Daniel Hemrick's car in the number 11 Cup Series ride this coming year, acting as primary for 10 races. Not the 11, the 10.
31. Hemrick's 31 this year.
31. Yeah, I was getting numbers wrong all week long, folks. Sorry, it's been a long week.
All good.
Led by the fact that I spent 2 nights at my other radio station because of the weather here in Alabama. And that'll just screw you up for the rest of the year. The first, by the way, for Circle on Daniel Hemrick's ride will be on the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum, Mausoleum, whatever you want to call it, and then on to the Daytona 500. Legacy MC, no surprise here, announced that Carvana will continue to be the primary sponsor for Jimmy Johnson when he drives the part-time number 84 entry, which he will do to try to get into the Daytona 500. Johnson and Carvana have been partners since his first year in IndyCar competition back in 2021. They'll partner for the Daytona 500. These are big races that they're going to try and get into here on that 84 with Carvana. Daytona 500, Brickyard 400, season finale at Phoenix. 3 other races for Johnson in the 84 will come with Dollar Tree Family Dollar, that sponsorship that we talked about last week on the show. That'll be his primary sponsor. Those are going to be races at Dover, April the 28th, Kansas, September 29th, Vegas, October the 20th. 3 more races that we do know: Texas in April, Coca-Cola 600, and Kansas in May 5th. They're going to be all with Advent Health on the hood as his primary sponsor. So he's set to run at least 9 races with sponsorships that we know. I have heard anywhere from 12 to 17 potential races this coming year for the 84.
It wouldn't surprise me because of what happened last year and he had to pull the plug on what he was going to run.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me if it adds up to that to make up for it.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this real quick here before we go to break. Because if I were a voting member for the NASCAR Hall of Fame or somebody coming up with the rules when it comes to the NASCAR Hall of Fame, here's the one slight problem that I have with Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus going in. Are they deserving? Absolutely. But when it comes to football, baseball, basketball, hockey, most any other Hall of Fame that you got out there, you have to be retired for a specific period of time. NASCAR, technically, the Hall of Fame has that rule. You have to be retired from full-time competition for 3 years. I might want to change that to be retired from racing in NASCAR for 3 full years. But that's picking nits. I get that. But there's your loophole. For those of you that are saying, hey, wait a minute, the guy's going into the Hall of Fame, but he's still active, there's the loophole. He's not full-time. He's part-time. And by the rules of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, that's allowed because he only has to be retired from full-time Cup Series racing in this particular case to be eligible for the Hall.
Sure.
That's how they got it.
Sure.
But yeah, are they deserving? Look at the resumes of Jimmy Johnson and Chad Canals. Sorry, you can't argue it. You may not like Jimmy Johnson, but the resume bears Hall of Fame inclusion.
Yep.
We'll continue on with some Cup Series news with Rick Ware Racing right after this. In Steve West along with Matt Nicholson this week. Again, producer John joining us probably not next week, but 2 weeks from now. Rick Ware Racing trying to become a legitimate NASCAR player. What do we mean by that? Well, we've talked about how they've got themselves their technical alliance with RFK Racing for 2024. They went out last year, plucked Justin Haley away from Cowlick Racing to drive for them full-time. Haley's now going to drive the number 51 entry. We found that out this week. Chris Lawson will be his crew chief. We also know that J.J. Yaley will not be back to drive for Rick Ware Racing. We'll return to that in just a couple of minutes. So what happens with their other Cup Series ride? Well, apparently Kaz Gralla happens. Gralla has signed to drive the number 15 Ford Mustang for the team in 25 Cup Series races this coming year. The races were not fully announced. We do know he'll be at the Busch Light Clash, and then the second race of the year at Atlanta, second points race of the year at Atlanta, skipping apparently the Daytona 500. Drivers for the other 13 races of the year, including the All-Star race, set to be announced soon. One would presume, with him being cleared in North Carolina, Cody Ware is at least in the mix.
I don't think he is.
We'll find out.
But.
And the only reason I say that is maybe because of the family connection. But again, we don't know. And anything that we say beyond Kaz Gralla in the 15 would be pure speculation.
Yeah, but I don't understand why Kaz Gralla would leave a good Xfinity car to go to a backmarker Cup car. It's just
maybe he feels like things with RFK are going to help turn Rick Ware Racing around.
I would give it 1 year before I'd made a decision like
I
that.
probably would too. You got to give it some time to work the bugs out on that certain situation.
Sure.
Now, here's the thing. With Rick Ware Racing now having paired with RFK on a technical alliance, Front Row Motorsports apparently felt like they might get kind of back seat on this one, so they switched. They've been paired with RFK on a technical alliance since 2016, and it has done some good things. They've grabbed a couple of wins over the course of that time, not the least of which, 2022 Daytona 500, Michael McDowell?
21.
Was that the 21? Okay. Well, instead they're switching. They're moving their alliance over to the fellow Ford organization, Team Penske. So they join Wood Brothers along with Front Row Motorsports now as allies with Team Penske. You could do a lot worse.
Definitely could.
They're going to be an interesting one to watch. I mean, we've seen how that organization has come together over the last couple of years and really set themselves up to move from what we would generally consider to be a backmarker organization to certainly solidly mid-level with the chance to go after and get some wins.
Right.
And no disrespect to RFK Racing, but Team Penske, to me, seems better set to be able to handle multiple alliances. More so than RFK is right now.
Sure. Go to that facility and you'll see why.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Then there's Trackhouse Racing, and Trackhouse Racing is just constantly moving and shaking and doing stuff, and they've got a couple of things here. They've signed a partnership deal with a fast food restaurant chain that continues the partnership with Wendy's. It'll cover the 1 of Ross Chastain, the 99 of Daniel Suarez, and whenever he happens to run in the Cup Series, Shane Van Gisbergen. The deal calls for Wendy's to be an associate sponsor all year long and a primary sponsor for 2 races. The first revealed to be Talladega when SVG gets in the car. Can't wait for him to be at Talladega. Good grief. It also covers SVG when he drives the Xfinity Series competition for Callaghan 2 other races. Another Trackhouse sponsorship deal that we got a picture of is an extension and actually expansion of their deal with Quaker State Motor Oil and Lubricants. Company's going to be the primary sponsor for Daniel Suarez on the 99 while also getting associate sponsor branding on the 1 for Chastain. How many races not revealed? What we do know is this. When the NASCAR Mexico Series comes north of the border to race at the LA Mausoleum, Coliseum, whatever, Suarez is not only set to race in the Busch Light Clash, but in that Mexico Series event because that's where he came to the U.S. to race our NASCAR from NASCAR Mexico. Mm-hmm. And Quaker State will be his primary sponsor for that debut of the series in the United States. It's a pretty good-looking car, actually. A little bit of the Mexican flag kind of a look going on there with the red along the top and along the side, which does seem a little orange in this particular look. But
I would have left the red on the top. I wouldn't have put it on the sides.
I can see that. But overall, it's not a bad-looking car. Thank you to Trackhouse for the look on CRN Live on YouTube. And then there's this. The Busch Light Clash format. It was revealed with 4 heat races planned. How the starting lineups be determined? Well, they're going to be based on final practice speed. This is where soapbox time is about to come in, boys and girls. The field is going to be randomly split into thirds. Each are going to get 3 practice sessions, the third and the final being the one that counts the most, obviously, towards setting the starting lineups for the heats. A look at the breakdown on CRN Live on YouTube is courtesy of NASCAR. For those of you that aren't looking at that, you get 4 25-lap heat races featuring 10 cars in each heat. Only green flag laps will count. No overtime. There will be a last chance qualifier as well. All the cars that don't make it in through the heats will then run a 75-lap event. Only green flag laps counting, no overtime once again, and the top 2 finishers will advance to the Clash. So there are going to be 23 starters in the Clash. Wait a minute. If you do the addition on what I just talked about, I've only talked about 22, right? The 23rd, the final starting slot, goes to the driver that finished the highest in the final 2023 Cup Series points that did not race their way in. That's the equivalent, I guess, of the last champions slot that we used to have back in the 1990s. I mean, that's the best way that I can figure that.
Back in the 90s, if I remember right, I think you're right. Yeah. Because back in the 90s, it would be past champions provisional, which should be past champions provisional regardless. Oh, the highest person in the points. Well, if your highest person in the points is 23rd, that's going to be your 23rd starter.
Yeah, pretty much.
And very good possibility it's going to be somebody in that 23rd to 25th range.
Probably, in all likelihood.
But the Clash has shown crazy things in 2 years at the football stadium bonanza.
Uh-huh.
So
we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. That's all you can say. We'll see.
2 weeks to go. So here's the deal. 23 starters for the Clash. A 150-lap event. Only green flag laps are counting, but overtime in this case does come into play because the race must end under green according to NASCAR. There will be a halftime where the drivers will get the chance to have work on their cars, change tires, blah, 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 blah. And while all that's going on, you'll get a musical performance from something called a Machine Gun Kelly. I don't know. Don't care.
DJ, he's a joke.
I don't know about that, and I don't care. Do me a favor. Don't show as much of that as you show the work on being done on the cars, okay?
Yeah.
The thing about all that is, and this was quickly changing throughout the course of the week. Early in the week, Bob Pockris of Fox Sports said fans were not going to be happy because they were not going to be able to get into the LA Coliseum for any of the Saturday on-track activities. Pockris was asked on social media if Sunday tickets got them into Saturday action. He replied, quote, "There is no public access on Saturday to the Clash, from what I understand." And this brought about immediate backlash to the point where Matt has a soapbox prepared. I'll go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. There was so much backlash, NASCAR yesterday announced that if you have Sunday tickets, they'll open up fan access on Saturday.
Free of charge.
For free of charge. That's how much backlash came about. But here's the deal. And we heard this last night, too. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember, I want to say it was Chad Knaus. Basically alluding to the fact that NASCAR and motorsports in general is the most fan-friendly of all the sports out there. But yet NASCAR initially said no fan access on Saturday. What?
When I saw that and when I heard that, I immediately said, huh?
Uh-huh.
You're going to one of the top 2 largest sports markets in the United States. Let's go ahead and say top 3. Because you insist on going there because of
wanting to make sure that you have a foothold in the LA market.
LA market, because you couldn't keep a perfectly good racetrack right outside of the LA market that is considered the LA market still.
Yeah.
You couldn't keep it open because of real estate. Bought it. Okay.
Well, because they were willing to sell the real estate.
Yeah, they were willing to sell it. Exactly. But at the same time, you're insisting on sending your hauler drivers all the way out there just for a cash grab show.
Mm-hmm.
You're wanting to stay within said market and expand your footprint and gain new fans, but you're initially not going to let them in on Saturday, which is, and I will go back to something that I always told people that asked me about going to their first race at Talladega.
Okay. I think I know where you're going with this, too.
My opinion that I always give them, if you've got a first-timer that's not used to large crowds, not used to stuff of that nature, your best bet is going to be take them to experience. And this is back when Friday was full bore, wide open practice
and
qualifying.
Yeah. And qualifying for the quote unquote lower series.
Take them either on Friday, take them on Saturday to get their feet wet.
Sure. And there's two bonuses to that, by the way.
Yep.
Number one, like you were talking about, for those who don't like big crowds, this is a chance to allow them to kind of get used to the layout.
Mm-hmm.
But you might actually be surprised how accessible the competitors are on a Friday and a Saturday versus Sunday.
Correct. If you have garage access for
True.
either one of those days.
True.
Agreed. But in a Los Angeles market, at a de facto short track, and you're going to have not one but two series running full-scale, full-bore heat races with practice.
Uh-huh. And you're not going to let people in?
And you're initially not going to let them in? That makes no sense. Yeah, we're going to send everybody across country to go run this exhibition race, but an exhibition race, which is perfectly could have still been in Daytona, if you ask me. Run an exhibition race, but we're going to not let people in the stands on Friday. Give me a break.
Absolutely.
Good call on reversing it, because that's only going to expand your footprint further.
Mm-hmm.
You open it up free of charge to the stadium, free of charge to watch the practice and qualifying and heat races. That could give access to somebody that might not have had, and let's just say anywhere from had the extra $45 to $80 to get a said seat to watch either race.
And there's also this. First couple of years, we've seen it, give or take, what, 2/3 full-ish?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The vast majority of those tickets have already been sold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Here's the bonus. You allow people to get into this stadium, which holds, give or take, 100,000 people.
LA stadium capacity. You read my mind because I was looking up the capacity. Current capacity as it states, 77,500.
Okay. So let's say, round figures, 50,000 tickets have been sold for the Busch Light Clash for this year. Give or take, 66%, 2/3. You allow all of the city of LA, you tell the city of LA, whoever wants to come, until we are overloaded, come on.
Mm-hmm.
How many people who were initially not going to buy a ticket are going to take an opportunity to go check out something like this for free?
Sure.
And if they actually like it, now they have the opportunity before they leave to go home
To
purchase a ticket for the Busch Light Clash.
Purchase said ticket.
So I'll give NASCAR credit for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've done is they've taken chicken you-know-what and made chicken salad out of it. But the fact that they made the decision in the first place to not allow fans in on Saturday was a bad move.
Yeah, to even do that.
It was a bad move.
But a good reversal for sure.
Yep. And one final note here before we wrap up hour number one here, where Monday we learned about the passing of longtime NASCAR crew chief Ryan Pemberton. This came as a big shock. Speaking of Bob Pockrass on Fox Sports, posted on Twix, which, by the way, if you're new to the show, this is what we're now calling Twitter/X, because I'm sorry, I still want to call it Twitter. Pockrass posted, quote, veteran NASCAR crew chief Ryan Pemberton, who most recently was competition director for Junior Motorsports, died yesterday at age 54. I've always enjoyed our conversations in the garage. R.I.P. Rest in peace. The veteran called the shots from the pit boxes for 637 total races, 2 Cup Series wins, 3 Xfinity Series wins over the course of that time. The picture that you see of Pemberton on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of MSN.com. Since 2012, he stepped down from being crew chief. He's been instrumental, however, in getting Junior Motorsports into being the position that they are, being a power in the Xfinity Series. He served as their director of competition up until 2022. Kelly Earnhardt Miller said of Pemberton, quote, he had such a passion for competition, and as a leader, he knew how to motivate everyone he worked with. He will always be part of the JRM family. Our hearts go out to his wife, Andrea, and daughters, Peyton and Britton, during this tremendously difficult time. And kind of the strange thing about it was slated to appear on a podcast called Scene Vault when the news was released, which, of course, caused them to have to change course. The podcast people posted on social media, quote, "I am absolutely and without reservation in shock right now. Ryan Pemberton, our interview scheduled to start with this week's episode, died very suddenly yesterday." I'd already posted the completed episode on Patreon before I got the news a couple of hours ago. Obviously, we'll rework it into a post an updated version on Wednesday in Ryan's memory. Have not had the chance to meet or talk to Ryan Pemberton, but from what I understand, consummate professional. And again, a guy who knew how to get things working. And for no less than Kelly Earnhardt Miller to basically come out and state this guy was instrumental in making us the organization that we are now. Mm-hmm. That's a massive and a major compliment to Ryan Pemberton.
No doubt, for sure.
And at 54.
Way too.
I mean, I'm 55.
Way too young.
That just kind of freaks me the heck out, man.
Way too young.
Way too young. So, yeah, our thoughts and our prayers go out to the family and friends and coworkers of Ryan Pemberton at this tough time. When we come back, we'll switch gears. We'll turn our attention over to the Xfinity Series. We'll talk a little more Joe Gibbs racing here. Well, I'll take that back. We're not really going to talk about that. We are going to talk more Cowlick racing, and we'll talk about, as promised, the situation with what was going on with J.J. Yeley. Stick around. That and more coming up next. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 underway here on CRN. Matt Nicholson, Steve West along with you. Producer John going to join us here. Not next weekend probably, but maybe 2 weeks from now. Hopefully. We mentioned J.J. Yaley not going to be back with Rick Ware Racing. He has decided to remove himself from that situation. What he wants to do now, as opposed to being that journeyman racer who will pretty much race for anybody that will put him behind the wheel, he wants to concentrate on finding a car in the Xfinity Series that he can now call home. And I get it. That's ultimately exactly what you should want.
Oh, sure.
You want to have that long-term situation where you can develop that long-term situation. Now, 3 weeks before we got to be at Daytona to begin points racing and preparation for points racing, I'm not sure what he's going to find. If he had done this at the end of 2023, I think he would have been better off.
It's going to end up being a mid-pack to backpack car.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And unfortunately, because J.J. Yaley is an underrated driver. He's
Sure.
a good driver
Sure.
who just has not had really the opportunity to prove it in good enough equipment. So we'll find out what happens with him. Callig Racing had some Xfinity Series news to share in addition to all of their Cup Series news. They've signed Daniel Dye. He's going to be on a part-time slate this coming year for them. Dye's going to take the wheel of the number 10 Chevy Camaro for at least 10 races, including the season opener at Daytona, where Callig will feature 4 cars: Dye, A.J. Allmendinger, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Josh Williams.
If I'm AJ or Josh Williams, I don't know which other of the team drivers I would want to be pushing or following me.
Dye is inexperienced. We obviously know about Shane, who's coming over from Australian supercars. Maybe it's Allmendinger and Williams who are pairing up. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know.
If I'm AJ and Josh, I'm telling them to shut up and follow.
Yeah.
Just follow.
Yeah. Listen to us and take in everything you can take in.
Which Van Gisbergen, you know he's going to be doing that because he's going to be an absolute sponge.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, because this is race number 2 for him. He will get into the ARCA Menard Series race, in all likelihood. I doubt seriously he's going to miss out on it.
He'll be in because from what I've seen, he passed the test successfully.
Okay, so but he's looking for as much experience as he can get because guess what? Again, he's preparing to throw himself into the fire of Cup Series competition at Talladega. He's going to want to get as much information as he can while he can. Yeah, he'll be that sponge. And Daniel Dye better be taking notes as well. After that, Dye's set to run at Martinsville and Dover in April, Iowa in June, Pocono July, along with Indianapolis, Michigan in August. He'll be at September's Kansas race, Vegas in October, and behind the wheel for the season finale in Phoenix. He'll feature Champion Container Corporation as his primary sponsor when he's driving. This is a kid who they apparently feel like he's got enough promise to be able to do that. I mean, that's a pretty ambitious schedule for a kid who's becoming full-time in the Truck Series this year. And you look at the variety of tracks that he's going to be running at in Xfinity competition.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big... Well, in 2 ways, Callig's taking a big jump for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
So...
But they're like Trackhouse. They don't seem scared of making jumps.
They're not.
We'll see how it works.
They are not, for sure.
Sam Hunt Racing, meanwhile, has gone out and signed NASCAR veteran driver Jeffrey Earnhardt to a multi-race deal for their number 26 Toyota Supra, sponsorship from Forever Lawn. This will be his first run this coming season, will be race number 2, Atlanta. Now 34 years old, Earnhardt with 161 Xfinity Series starts to his credit, got 2 top 5 and 5 top 10 finishes and a pole over that course of time. This is a return for him to Sam Hunt Racing after a year away. Back in 2022 with Sam Hunt Racing, he got 7 starts, claimed one of those top 10s with them at Nashville Super Speedway. Last year he was racing for others. So this return, we'll see if it's a welcome home.
Yep.
Into the Craftsman Truck Series news, where Marco Andretti going to be part-time in both IndyCar and in NASCAR. In addition to his IndyCar part-time stuff, he's going to run NASCAR with Cook Racing Technologies, really on 2 levels. He'll be in the number 17 Chevrolet in the ARCA Menard Series. They still running SS bodies over there?
Yes.
Okay. So he'll be in the number 17 Chevy SS in the ARCA Menard Series, and then he'll jump into the Truck Series in a 04 numbered Chevrolet Silverado in a part-time role. He's slated to run 14 races in the ARCA Menard Series this year, and 7 Truck Series races are planned as well. So about 21 total. First Truck Series race slated to be at COTA, while he'll be racing in the ARCA season opener at Daytona. Bruce Cook is the team's owner. He'll also be the crew chief. Sounds like a rather small operation. He's been crew chief for drivers like Ross Chastain, Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhart Jr., and he does have one Xfinity Series win. That came with Tony Stewart in some 134 races as a crew chief in the series. I have to admit, I've never heard of Cook Racing Technologies. And again, if you're the owner and you're the crew chief, this tells me you've got a rather small operation, but 21 races, they've got to have something going on.
The Cook operation for the trucks is going to be intertwined in with Roper Racing.
That makes a lot of sense then. Okay.
Because
so they're going to get some help there.
They did this at Mid-Ohio last year with Landon Lewis.
Okay.
And Ron Hornaday was up there. He's winning the KHI deal. Mm-hmm. Ron Hornaday's mentoring Landon Lewis.
Okay.
Because they were up there standing in front of me in line getting their stuff when I was getting my stuff. Anyway, that's what the tie-in is from. I'm a little bit surprised that the Truck Series stuff is not tied in with Spire.
A little.
But who's to say this won't be a Spire-supported technology-wise effort?
Could be. And the reason why he says that is because Andretti did make 3 Truck Series starts just last year, all of those with Spire Motorsports in that Truck Series. Claimed 2 top 20 finishes. 2022, he raced in the Xfinity Series. Of course, he got a taste for stock car racing through racing in the Superstar Racing Experience, SRX, where he was the 2022 champ.
But with his 2024 schedule, I've got it pulled up in full right here.
Okay.
His first 2 races will be the ARCA races. Daytona on February 17th. He'll go to Phoenix. And his first truck start is at COTA.
Mm-hmm.
His next 2 are the ARCA. Well, let me word it this way. His first 2 ARCA starts are ARCA National Series.
Okay.
Then the trucks. His next 2 ARCA starts, respectively, at Dover and Kansas, are ARCA National. His next 2 are ARCA West Series at Portland and Sonoma.
Road courses.
Yep. His next 3 ARCA starts are National Series at Iowa, Mid-Ohio, and IRP. His second Truck Series start will be in July at IRP.
Wow,
So he's going to have a doubleheader at IRP the same day with ARCA and trucks.
It's a lot of time off, though, when you stop and think about it.
For sure.
In the Truck Series, anyway.
His next starts don't come until August 25th when he runs a doubleheader at Milwaukee in ARCA and trucks. September 13th and September 19th, his next 2 starts are ARCA National starts, would be at Watkins Glen and Bristol, respectively. And here's his baptism by the fire. Bristol trucks, September 19th.
Ooh. Wow.
He's doing a lot of double headers because he's doing Bristol and the double header same day. Then he's doing a double header at Kansas the same day on ARCA and trucks. Then his final two starts will be in the Truck Series at Homestead and Phoenix, respectively.
So we're not going to get him at Talladega. Kind of a shame.
Who's to say they might not throw Talladega in?
It's possible.
If he has a good showing at Daytona.
At least right now, though, that's not on the schedule.
Yeah, if he has a good showing at Daytona, which he was very fast in the test at Daytona, that's a possibility.
Yep. We'll see what happens. And this, I got to say, this just continues to lead me to think sooner or later, once this whole F1 soap opera between Andretti Global and Formula One finally gets settled in whatever way, the next thing that Andretti Global is going to be looking at is getting into NASCAR. It just seems to be leading that direction.
I think they're already there, quietly.
I'm saying that they're going to be out loud about it.
Out loud, yeah, but I think they're already there quietly.
I think you're right. I do. I think you're right about that. But I think they're going to be much louder about it once this F1 soap opera gets taken care of. Over at Trackhouse Racing, they continue to expand out. They're expanding their driver lineup in this latest move. It was to sign 17-year-old Connor Zilisch to a driver development deal. Now, that's actually about a week and a half old news. The big news is now they've announced what they plan on doing with him this year. This week, they announced he has been racing Trans Am and karting over the last several years. Now with Trackhouse, they're going to expand it out. As part of his multi-year driver development deal, Zilisch will begin a program that will see him continue to race in Trans Am, He'll add in running in the Cars Tour, ARCA Menard Series, some IMSA racing, and get some Craftsman Truck and Xfinity Series racing this year and next. With his experience, expect most, if not all, of his NASCAR wheel time this year to be on road courses, which is his area of expertise. But I would expect that to expand out as he gains wheel time and confidence.
He's a jam-up, very good road course racer. So I won't be surprised if you see him in the majority, if not all, of the road courses, like you said. Man, maybe a short track here or there. I would say probably Martinsville or IRP.
Yeah, and remember, he's limited somewhat in his NASCAR abilities because he is 17. We have to wait until he turns 18, and I don't know when that happens.
Truck Series, mile and under, or road courses.
There you go. To the National Hot Rod Association, where last week, you might remember, we noted the creation of the SCAG racing team. It's a combination of two other organizations. One of those, the SCAG Wilkerson Racing Team. They've announced something of kind of a bombshell here. If you're familiar with funny car competitor Tim Wilkerson, he's stepping out of the car. He's turning over the car to his son, Daniel Wilkerson. Tim all but retiring with 24 wins, 20 number one qualifiers, and a second-place points finish back in 2005, plus 16 consecutive seasons of finishing inside the top 10 in final points over a 27-year career as a racer. Expect him to remain with the organization as a tuner and likely something of a crew chief for Daniel. Daniel's actually something of a veteran himself. He's been racing in NHRA competition since 2009, but only on a part-time basis. For 2022 and 23, he also acted as crew chief for Chad Green on his funny car entry, led him to a fifth-place finish in the final 2023 standings with a win, 2 runners-up, and a number one qualifier. Daniel, again, despite racing since 2009, only has 14 national events series to his credit and a high of 4 for any one season. So he's actually, get this, eligible for the 2024 NHRA Rookie of the Year award. Okay. I'm not trying to put anything against him on this because, you know, hey, knock yourself out. If your dad, Tim, who is as accomplished as he is, feels you're good enough and you're ready to go into that car, by all means, go get in the car. But I do kind of wonder about it in a lot of ways.
Saying goes, a baptism by fire.
Yeah, we'll have to see how he does. I mean, you know, he and Tony Stewart both, you know, because Tony's, he's qualified. He's obviously got the license for NHRA Top Fuel, Nitro Top Fuel funny car or Nitro Top Fuel competition. But after 1 year of top alcohol competition, Top Fuel is going to be a very different animal.
Considerably.
And with only 14 races under your belt, now you're going to run the entire funny car year? Go, Daniel.
Yeah, go for it.
Got a spotlight on you, brother.
Go for it.
John Force Racing announced a rather surprise driver switch as well. They noted that for personal medical reasons, which were not disclosed and don't have to be, Robert Heidt is stepping away from competition. The team announced they're going to put Austin Prock in that car. Now, Austin Prock is a long-time John Force Racing driver. Height's a 3-time funny car champion, president of the organization. He said, quote, "I have to put my health first. Once this is resolved, I'll be back. I'll be looking forward to racing again. I'm a competitor. Can't wait to get back to doing what I love. I know Austin will do a great job in my place, and I have no doubt he'll win races." No pressure, Austin. As for Austin himself, he said, quote, "First of all, best wishes going out to Robert and his health. It's been a dream of mine to drive a funny car with my family, but this isn't the way that I hoped it would happen. It is bittersweet. As noted, it'll be a family affair. He'll be the driver. His father, Jimmy, and his brother, Thomas, will be co-crew chiefs for him, along with Height's regular crew chief, Nate Hildahl." Matt, and you said you found out a little bit more about this?
Yeah, friend of mine, Aaron, he is a public relations, one of the public relations managers for John Force Racing, and he works with John specifically. When I saw this, I reached out to him and asked him about, because immediately when I thought this, I asked him, I said, all right, if when Austin's moving over to Robert's car, I said, who's going to drive the 4th car, the Top Fuel car? Mm-hmm. There will not be a second Top Fuel car for John Force Racing this year in 2024. Austin's going to solely focus on the funny car and filling in for Robert.
Okay.
It'll probably be later in the year, if not 25 before Robert gets back.
So Robert may be out the entire year.
There is a possibility.
May.
And that word is a very large may.
Okay.
But he's going to be back, but he's just going to take some time to himself. But that was the big question that I had. They're not going to run a fourth car, which is the second top fuel car. They're going to just set it
so
on
Austin can just concentrate on the funny car.
On the funny
Doesn't
car.
have to split his attention.
Because
that's actually probably a good move.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's not going to, because Aaron said that Austin's big dream that he's always had since he's been a kid is to race John head to head. So now he's going to get that shot.
Here it comes, man.
Welcome to the club, buddy.
Yeah, and John's going to sit there, and every time you two get paired up, he's just going to have that knowing little grin on his face of, you want to beat the Mac Daddy? Come on.
Yep. But the good thing about it is knowing that Robert will be back.
Yeah, absolutely. One more note in the racing world, and then we'll talk about an icon in the NHRA going down in favor of being updated. But Vance and Hines Racing have announced their riders for 2024. They're going to bring back Gage Herrera, which, considering what he did last year, why wouldn't you? And they're going to pair him with a kid by the name of Richard Gadsden. Eddie Krawick, the four-time world champion pro stock motorcycle racer, has ended his career as a racer, at least for now. He will continue on as a crew chief for Gadsden. Andrew Hines will continue as the crew chief for Herrera. Just look at last year's record. That seemed to work out pretty well. Both rides are going to be sponsored by motorcycle gear, parts, and accessories company RevZilla. I would expect probably not a whole lot of difference from last year, truth be told, because, I mean, Vance and Hines has always been a power in pro stock motorcycle competition, and with what Gage Herrera did in basically winning everything under the sun last year, it wouldn't shock me if they turn around and did it again. But watch out for Richard Gadsden.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back.
Hey, welcome back in. Appreciate you joining us here on this weekend as we are, coming towards the end of today's show already. But still a lot to get. Don't worry about it. One final note in National Hot Rod Association and the NHRA. The tower named Parks Tower in honor of the founder of the NHRA, Wally Parks, also honored with the trophies awarded to the winners of the Mission Food Drag Racing Series known as the Wally. The tower's coming down. You've been there.
I have.
I've seen it from a long, long time ago, back when I was there for the Mopar Nationals. Very, very professional setup. I mean,
Sure.
You think of drag racing, you think, well, all you need is a scoring tower and, a couple of nice long strips of asphalt, and boom, you got yourself a drag strip. Mm-hmm. And there are some places that look exactly like that.
Yeah.
Then there are places like ZMAX Dragway in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Indianapolis Raceway Park in this particular situation. It is an absolutely fabulous facility. And the track is just trying to keep up with the times. So this was a 4-story tower, which housed race control, media center, VIP suites, and more. Once that's cleared out, construction will begin on a new tower for race control and media, along with skybox suites. I might want to check that out. No timeline has been set for completion of this new tower. Seems likely timing is going to be handled out of a temporary structure for this year. And here's the thing. IRP is one of the tracks that is owned by NHRA. Another one is Gainesville, for example. And the NHRA noted that when they sold off Atlanta Dragway, which is why Atlanta Dragway is no longer on the NHRA schedule, that gave them the funds to be able to perform the upgrades to Gainesville and what they're doing at IRP now. So I get where they're going with this. Is it sad that Atlanta Dragway is no longer on there? Yes, it is. But it's not like they just grabbed the money and sat on it. They're actually doing stuff with it to improve the experience at a couple of other of their facilities.
That tower definitely needed upgrading, because after going into the tower at ZMAX versus going into the tower at IRP, you're just like, dear Lord, have mercy.
Yeah. It needed to be updated, and I guess they just figured, you know what, while we're at it, why don't we just go ahead and redo the whole thing?
I'll give you you know what I'm talking about. I'll give you the perfect upgrade comparison that you're the most familiar with.
Okay.
New PA tower at Talladega versus the old PA tower at Talladega.
You mean the double wide trailer that was the PA tower at Talladega?
Yeah.
Into the dedicated building that we're in now?
The one thing that I seen that was neat about IRP, the way it was set up is where the media area is, to where you can sit in the media center. Well, it was a de facto media center / media area where you could see the lanes all the way down and see the strip all the way down. It was directly side by side and connected to the PA booth where the PA guy sat, Alan Reinhart and whoever he had with him in the weekend.
Sure.
So that was the neat part about that one, but it definitely had aged. Let's word it that way.
Yeah.
So it was needed. So
it was time.
Yep.
And like I said, instead of gutting it out, they just decided, you know what, let's drop it all the way down, let's start all over, and let's create something that'll last for a long time.
And
I'll give them credit for that.
They probably should have it done by September. I would say.
They might. We'll see. IndyCar, not a whole lot of news out there this year, but IndyCar is, as they usually are, very heavily represented in next weekend's Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. Now, next week, I'll give you the schedule of when and where you can watch. It's covered by NBC and their affiliates. We'll tell you between NBC, USA, and Peacock where you'll be able to watch it at any particular given time. Right now, we'll just give you some of these drivers here. Andretti Global drivers that are joining. Marcus Ericsson going to be working with Wayne Taylor Racing in the number 10 GTP entry. Colton Herta's working with the same team but driving the number 40 GTP entry. Kyle Kirkwood has a long-standing relationship with Lexus. He's joining them to help pilot their number 14 GTD entry. That's fielded by Vassar Sullivan Racing. Former Andretti Global driver Devlin DeFrancesco, who's still seeking an IndyCar ride for 2024. Dalecoin Racing's your last shot, dude. He's going to be working with Forte Racing. He'll be driving the GTD division as well. He's the number 78 Lamborghini Huracan. We saw a lot of these cars last year, and it was a lot of fun to check this out. And while most of the time you can spend in the infield, if you go down there, take some time, especially at night. when the lights are on to go up, and we talked about this last year as well, but I'm going to mention it again. Take some time to go up into the grandstands. 300, 400 level is the best way to do it, and set yourself up right there with the entrance that takes the road course into the infield, because you'll be able to watch them coming off very well, coming off a turn 4 down through the trioval, going into, you can watch the entire infield road course, and them coming out and going back out onto the speedway. It's a great spot.
Especially at 2:30 in the morning when you're delirious.
Yeah. And you just kind of suddenly you become wide awake again because you're like, wow, look at this. This is cool.
And the ones that you see on YouTube, you're like, that's your reaction. You're just like, you become bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Let's say that.
Very quickly.
Very quick.
Chip Ganassi Racing, they got 3 of their drivers running. Scott Dixon's back. There's no shock there. Alex Pillow. They're actually pairing up as 2 of the drivers on the 01 Cadillac Hybrid GTP racer. Incoming rookie Kiffin Simpson. Let me see if I can't not combine those two. Incoming rookie Kiffin Simpson, who has experience in sports cars, is going to be driving the number 81 Dragon Speed LMP2 ride. You got Meyer Shank Racing for the first time in 2 decades, not going to have one of their own entries in the endurance race, but a couple of their IndyCar drivers are. Tom Blomqvist is going to be joining Action Express Racing for their number 31 Cadillac GTP entry. And teammate Felix Rosenquist has joined United Autosports to drive their number 22 Oreca LMP2 entry. You've got Aero McLaren Racing. They have the arm where McLaren has paired with Pfaff Motorsports to put a McLaren 720S into 720S GT3 specifically. This is the GTT Pro division as well. Pato Award is driving for United Autosports in their number 2 Oreca LMP2 ride. Team Penske's got representation down there by Joseph Newgarden. He's returning to Porsche to help them in their number 7 and number 7 Porsche 963 hybrid model. Scott McLaughlin heading over to Tower Motorsports, a return engagement for him in their number 8 LMP2 ride. Romain Grosjean, who's Juncos Hollinger Racing, he's going to be in there as well. He's driving for the Iron Lynx team in the number 60 Lamborghini Huracan GTD entry. 2024 rookie Christian Rasmussen, who's going to drive for Ed Carpenter Racing this coming year, set to drive the number 18 LMP2 for Aero Motorsports. And again, the race will take place next weekend. We'll be talking about the schedule once again next weekend as well.
Piloting that McLaren for Pfaff Motorsports is Alexander Rossi and James Hinchcliffe are 2 of the drivers.
Well, there you go. That'll be big. And then there's this. We've been talking about this Apple Plus streaming service Formula One movie that's coming out with Jerry Bruckheimer of Top Gun and Days of Thunder fame, but Brad Pitt starring this time. You'll note that in competition, there will be a Geico and Peak Antifreeze sponsored Porsche 992 with a number 120 on the side. That is a real-life car. But if you were to look closer for it, this Wright Motorsports entry, which has drivers like Adam Adelson, Elliott Skier, Jan Halen, and Frederick Makowecki, they're not going to be on that car. They'll be in the car, but their names will not be on the car. The names that'll be on the car are Chip Hart Racing. Who the heck is Chip Hart? We'll get back to it. And then you'll have names like Sonny Hayes, C. Kelso, and others. This is going to be used very, very liberally, from what I understand, the footage from this and that particular car in that upcoming F1 movie that's showing up on Apple Plus. And Jerry Bruckheimer is your Grand Marshal. He's going to give the command to start engines at the beginning of the
Pretty
race.
cool, yeah.
So they're going to be heavily involved.
The ones on the entry list, names that I don't recognize. Adam Adelson, Elliott Skier, like you said, Fred
those are the regular drivers.
Jan Halen, yeah.
Yeah, they're the regular drivers of that car. They are the actual drivers of the car, but they just don't get their names on the car for this particular race.
But you got one car right here, the entry list, the GT3 GT Daytona car, the number 80 Lone Star Racing, the Mercedes AMG GT3. No drivers on the entry list.
And the other thing that we noted is no NASCAR drivers.
Yeah, there are, for the first time that I can remember in a long time, no drivers of full-time NASCAR drivers at all.
Interesting. Don't know what's up there. We'll see. Then there's a kid by the name of Daniel Frost. Frost was preparing to make the jump from Indy NXT, Indy Next, up to Indycar for some select races this coming year. Yeah, he's got to put that on hold. He has to finish out his military service. Seems Frost is a native of Singapore. Now, he won the Indy Next season opener last year, finished 6th in the final points for Dale Coyne Racing, and it was thought that Dale Coyne Racing might actually be grabbing him to fill one of their 2 empty seats in 2024, but because he's a native of Singapore and they have compulsory military service that begins this year, that won't happen until 2026 at least. He's got to take at least 2 full years. Frost said, quote, "I'm taking a brief pause from racing to fulfill a compulsory commitment. It's time for me to embark on a new journey in the military, serving my nation in Singapore the next 2 years. Some individuals successfully transition into racing after their military service, while others do not. I will keep my passion and motivation for motorsports alive in the USA through a public relations effort with our next goal, IndyCar. Until then, I have to put my racing career on hold. Truthfully, it's been disturbing to me due to the disruption of my racing career." I bet. Nobody wants to do that. But again, you know, there are countries around the world that do have compulsory military service, and he happens to be a native of one of them. As for other IndyCar business, they've extended their deal with the Molson Coors Brewing Company, keeping them as the official beer of the Indianapolis 500, the Brickyard 400, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the series as a whole. In the deal, Carb Day will continue to be sponsored by Miller Lite, which is also owned by the company. Expanding on that sponsorship, now Coors Light will sponsor the concert stage that'll take place during, yes, I said during, the Indy 500. Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
More importantly for the teams, an adjustment in the Leaders Circle payouts is going to take effect this coming year as well. Now, this is a distribution deal that was set up quite a while ago between IndyCar and the teams, back when IndyCar was owned by the Holman George family, previous owners. This takes a majority of the prize money that would be paid out over the course of the season and then would divide it evenly amongst the teams whose cars finished in the top 22 of that season's final points. The problem, however, kind of developed after Penske Entertainment bought the series, because the 2022 payout per the contract, just over $1 million per car for, again, the top 22 points finishers. But for 2023, for reasons that I don't think that they really clarified, Penske Entertainment chose to cut that down by $150,000 per car. Now, that saved the company some $3.3 million, which the company said went into marketing for the company, for the series, and for Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which they also own. But of course, when you're kind of not told about it and suddenly you have a check that you're expecting to be this amount and it turns out to be that amount, I mean, let's face it, we're less than a month away, or a month past, when we would have all been watching, for example, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Remember Clark Griswold expecting a nice Christmas bonus, and what does he get? Membership to the Jelly of the Month Club? You kind of get ticked. If you're expecting a bonus check of $1.03 million, and instead it's $150,000 less, you kind of get upset.
A little.
And they did. And it led to them all going to the negotiating table. Penske Entertainment CEO Mark Miles told Racer.com, quote, "Typical funding will be restored." Good call. "We'll maybe have some news about the total amount, but it'll be 7 figures, so at least $1 million. And there will not be a deduction for help with promotions." Good call. He does say, though, that prices are increasing when it comes to operating budgets. Miles estimates the average budget for each IndyCar entry likely now to be about $7 million per car. Anywhere between $6 and $10 million, he says. $6 million on the low end, $10 million on the high end. But he says average budget probably in the $7.5 million range. So, yeah, every little bit helps when it comes to this sort of thing.
For sure.
So, yeah, nice call. And again, we can question why, for example, NASCAR would not allow Saturday attendance at the Busch Light Clash, or why Penske Entertainment would say, we're going to cut your payout $150,000 and not tell you. But we do have to give credit where it is due in the fact that they were also willing to realize, hey, we made a mistake. We're reversing course.
Yeah. Yep.
Wish we could say that about a lot of sports.
True.
Of course, we wish we could say that about a lot of decisions that are made by NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, SRX, IROC, NHRA, whatever.
Or people in general.
That's true. But hey, at least in a couple of cases, we can give you kudos.
Sure.
For
very, very
changing things up. We'll talk Formula One next. Formula One for you here, where Mercedes and Alpine have announced last weekend, right after the show, that they were set to show off their 2024 racers. Alpine set to take the wraps off their competitors on February the 7th, unveiling not only the Formula One, but at the same time their World Endurance Championship racers as well. 1 week later, February the 14th, Valentine's Day, Mercedes will take the covers off their 2024 racers, debuting the pair of cars and what they're going to look like in an online show live from Silverstone Raceway in Britain. This is the car Mercedes is hoping is going to take them back to championship form after having seen Red Bull win the last 2 Constructors' Cup titles and 3 Drivers' titles. Now, as of Monday of this week, the only teams that were yet to announce when they were going to show off their 2024 racers and how they're going to look were Red Bull, McLaren, AlphaTauri, and Haas F1. Now, McLaren, again, has decided they were going to go ahead and just jump the gun. Wednesday of this week, without telling anybody ahead of time, they revealed what the livery or paint scheme will look like.
Livery.
Yes, a little bit more papaya orange. As for the car itself, whatever changes year over year will finally show up on February the 14th. So this isn't the car, it's just the 2023 car with the 2024 wrap on it. The actual car itself will show up on February the 14th. Thank you to McLaren for a look at the paint scheme as seen on CRN Live on YouTube. Last week, I said Haas F1 probably was not going to show off their 2024 racer until they showed up at Catalunya for the preseason testing. Apparently, they're a little more prepared than I gave them credit for last week. Instead of waiting until then, they're actually going to do a public reveal at Silverstone in Britain on February the 11th. New team boss Komatsu did give a small preview, said this, quote, "The 24 car is a clear step." And then he cautions. But whether it's good enough against the competition to start off with, I don't think so because we started so late. We changed the concept so late as well. To answer your question directly, it is a step forward. Is it good enough? No. But what we do from that point is how we can show that we can improve the team or not. If I'm Gene Haas, I don't know whether I've done an improvement or not for 2024.
I don't know.
I mean, apparently Team Boss Komatsu seems to think that, yeah, we're probably going to be behind the 8 ball to begin with, but we'll figure out along the way how to improve it.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, you're not the only team that's improving along the way.
Exactly.
All the other teams in Formula One are also doing upgrades and improvements throughout the course of the year.
Exactly.
You better hope that what you do advances you by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
To get out of the cellar.
I do agree.
Mercedes has announced they've signed team principal Toto Wolff to a contract extension. Here's a duh moment. It's going to keep him through that role in that role at least through 2026, the first year of the new engine regulations. Now, Wolff also happens to own 1/3 of the racing operations. He said of the new deal, quote, "I think the most important thing between the three of us is that we trust each other." His partners are Mercedes-Benz CEO Ola Kalenius and the owner of the Ineos Corporation, Jim Ratcliffe. They are the three, and they each own an equal 33.3 whatever % share of the organization. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But, you know, this is the guy who's been in charge of it since they came back in as a Formula One operation. Why stop now? They've been successful. They've just kind of hit a rough patch.
Yeah, why fix what isn't broken?
Exactly. We heard that before. Where else are we going here? How about motorsport.com? They're reporting that former sporting director Alan Permane of Alpine Racing is set to be hired over at AlphaTauri, or whatever they're going to call themselves this coming year. We'll get back to that. In an as-yet undetermined role, Permane has been highly lauded by Red Bull's Christian Horner over the last few years, so this should come as no surprise that when he left Alpine in the whole Otmar Safnauer situation last year, when he was let go, that he would be interested in bringing in Permane, who's got 34 years of experience in Formula One to his credit, working with teams like Benetton, remember them? Renault, Lotus, and most recently Alpine, helping drivers like Michael Schumacher, Fernando Alonso claim F1 drivers' titles. Expect things like Permane's hire and the new team name and the car unveiling soon. Again, we'll kind of get back to that. Then there's the soap opera. Last week, we talked about the rather surprise split between Haas F1 and Gunther Steiner. And that saga continues because Steiner finally had the chance to give a little bit of his side in the story when he showed up at the Autosport International show in Britain's city of Birmingham, not to be confused with the United States and the state of Alabama's city of Birmingham, about 50 miles of us west here at the headquarters of the Championship Racing Network. In talking to Sky Sports F1 commentator David Croft, Steiner said, quote, "Can I start with just something from my side? I didn't have the chance to say thank you to a few people when I left Haas F1. I'd just like to thank all the team members who I could not give a proper goodbye to when I left. I want to say also thank you to the fans who supported Haas while I was there. It's fantastic. It's one of those occasions with so many people here, and thanks for coming as well, for me to say thank you to everybody for the support that I got and that I am getting. It stung not being able to say goodbye to the team, but they all know me and they still they appreciate what I did. It would be nice to say, hey guys, thanks for all that you did, because the team started very small, running on adrenaline a lot of times, but they did a good job. Obviously, it doesn't make you happy not being able to say thank you, but I think I did it now." Well, yeah, you did. And then he said, this was where things kind of turned into soap opera form. Then he stated how he was informed he wouldn't be back. Quote, "It was a phone call. Gene called me, said that he doesn't want to extend the contract, which was up at the end of the 2023 season, and that was it. I don't know if it was a surprise. It was always a little bit of a surprise, but then in the end, he owns the team. He can do what he wants, and it's his decision. Now, nobody likes to get the phone call, but here's the thing.
Sure.
Whether it's by phone call, in person, by text, which would be classless, but either way, news that the job that you had, that you've been doing, in his case since 2016, you're no longer in it, it's going to hurt. It's going to sting. There's no doubt about it. But those who get fired rarely get the chance to say goodbye.
Yeah. It is true.
So what's next for Gunther Steiner? He replied, quote, "If Formula One wants me, I don't know that. I guess I have to find something to do. At this moment, I'm very chilled out about the situation. I'm not in a hurry. People will see me around Formula One, and for me, just hanging around a year, doing an odd job, speaking with people, that does it for me. If something interesting comes along that challenges me, yes. But just staying in F1 to just do a job, maybe it's not what I want to do." Okay. And I don't blame him.
Right.
I mean, you know, his time in Formula One, and, you know, I don't know his exact salary that he had when he was as the team boss, basically, over at Haas F1, but I'm certain that it wasn't pennies.
No.
I'm sure he was making somewhere in seven figures.
Oh, I'm sure. Very sure.
So he can afford to take a year off.
Oh, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think his primary residence is still in North Carolina, in Mooresville.
Wouldn't surprise me, actually.
And quite frankly, with his background and experience, I wouldn't be totally shocked to see him back doing something within the NASCAR world.
Or IndyCar.
IndyCar, too.
We'll find out. We'll keep you updated. As for Gene Haas, he got to talking, but not about Steiner. Apparently, the subject came up of why has he continued to be a lone wolf owner? Why hasn't he taken on investors, for example? You might remember us talking about the show about how several celebrities, including Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds, bought into Formula One through the Alpine team. Well, Formula1.com reports that Reynolds and some of the others did actually go to Gene Haas first, looking to help and invest with him. But he turned them down. Why? Haas replied, quote, "We have had outside investors come in. They want to talk to us. They expect about a 15% rate of return every year. Give me a 15% rate of return and I have a couple of $100 million, I'll give you. But they all have high expectations. They have all kinds of rules. They want to buy into you, and 5 years later, they want to make a $100 million profit. Quite frankly, I don't need that kind of oversight from people who come in with $200 million. It's just not enough to entice me to do that." I kind of get where he's coming from. I mean, he wants that race team to be answerable to him instead of having to answer to an entire board.
This is understandable, for sure.
You know, and this is why, as you and myself and producer John have kind of gone through the situation of talking about incorporating this little wonderful experiment that we're doing right here and taking it on to bigger and higher levels, it's going to be the three of us.
Sure.
We're not going to go and, you know, try and sell stock in this thing and suddenly have to answer to a board of directors and, you know, potentially be thrown out of our own company. We started it with our blood and our sweat, and that's the way we want to keep it. So in a lot of ways, I respect that when it comes to Gene Haas. But as we can tell, right now, Gene Haas has a lot of work to do with that organization. A lot of work.
A considerable amount.
He's got a humongous mountain to climb. And it's not, here's the thing, for Gene Haas, it's not just his F1 operation. It's that Cup Series operation as well. And video has come out of Tony Stewart showing up at the Stewart Haas Racing headquarters and giving them a pep talk and basically saying, I feel like this is the crew that we can honestly go out there and we can work as a team and we can overcome the obstacles that are before us. But he admitted, we're not at the top of the hill. We're not even halfway up the hill. We're at the bottom of the hill looking up. And that means we got to go all the way to the top before we can think about looking down the other side.
Yep.
And part of that is Gene Haas, Stewart Haas Racing. The Haas F1 team is in the exact same position.
They are.
Now, I can't speak for Gene Haas, and I'm not trying to discredit him in any way, shape, or form. What I have noted this offseason, between the end of the NHRA, Formula One, NASCAR 2023 season, and to this point, as we lead into the beginnings of NASCAR and Formula One and NHRA, I'm seeing Tony Stewart hanging around Stewart Haas Racing a whole heck of a lot.
He is. He is. I mean, his drag racing operation, he's fine there.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah. His job is to get in there and drive the car. That's what he's going to do. He's going to leave the tuning and the crew chiefing to everybody else. He'll be involved as he needs to be involved when it comes time to go to Gainesville for the season opener. But his name is over the door, and he honestly believes he has the right people in the right places. And judging by their performance last year, where they won the funny car title and were
in contention to win Top Fuel.
Yeah, I think they finished, I can't remember, the second or third and final points in Top Fuel. That's pretty good shape. He doesn't need to be going in and giving that team pep talk.
Yeah, he don't need to be in Brownsburg every day.
The Stewart Haas Racing organization on the Cup Series side, on the other hand, does. Because not one of those 4 cars claimed to win. I get it. The Xfinity side did fine. 4 wins, the first ever win by Riley Earps, 3 wins by Cole Custer, plus you got the championship, won by Cole Custer. So the Xfinity arm is fine. But the Cup Series side isn't.
No.
And from everything that we've heard, Kevin Harvick had one way of setting up his cars that the other 3 drivers couldn't get a handle on.
Nope.
So you had the 4 car over here and the 41 and the 10 and the 14 all over there, and they were all trying to figure it out. But even the 4 car was suffering. Again, no wins. So they have to figure out what's going on. Tony Stewart honestly does believe, and this is not a slap at Kevin Harvick, this is just different driving styles, that this crew now, all 4 teams can now work together, and all 4 drivers can now work together and start to trade off information because driving styles are now seemingly much more similar.
Oh, sure. Sure.
And that does make a difference when it comes to the team.
A huge difference, because if you got 3 of your cars are in left field past the left field foul pole, but you got your flagship car that's just in left field, but he's just inside the left field foul pole, you can't get anywhere.
Exactly. But here's where Gene Haas comes in. Gene Haas has to split his attention because he's got the Haas CNC machine company that he started and grew to a worldwide dominant company from scratch. He's got Stewart Haas Racing. But again, it looks like Tony Stewart's taking the lead on that. Now he's got Haas F1, which is in the same situation as Stewart Haas Racing. It's not halfway up the mountain. It's certainly nowhere near the top of the mountain. It's at the bottom of the mountain. It has to push a massive boulder all the way up from being in the basement of Formula One.
Yep.
And massive changes need to be made.
Yep.
I do wonder how hands-on he is. But it seems like he is being a little bit more hands-on now because he realizes something's got to change or else I'm going to lose my shirt.
He's taking Tony's approach to the F1 side. He's taking Tony's approach to his F1 operation like Tony's taking to the Cup side.
Yeah. And I think it's the right thing to do. And we also know this. The Red Bull sister organization, I said we were going to get back to AlphaTauri, and we are right now. They are preparing to change their name again. The first move was to begin to separate themselves out from the Red Bull name, so they went from Toro Rosso, Italian for Red Bull, to AlphaTauri. Thing about it is AlphaTauri is not really a big stretch because AlphaTauri, in case you were wondering where they got the name, it is a clothing brand under the Red Bull parent company. Okay. Now they're promising a new name to be announced before the 2024 season gets underway, but otherwise they've been pretty quiet about it. But some sharp-eyed social media watchers noted that the AlphaTauri names disappeared during this past week, briefly, on all social media. And they were wondering, could this be their new name? Because it was replaced with Visa Cash App RB. Now again, title sponsorship, not unheard of. Technically, the Haas F1 team is the money team Haas F1 team. Go get that. There might be something to this. The official entry list for 2024, which was released in December, noted the AlphaTauri entry had RB in the team and chassis name. Visa and Cash App, that would back up interest that we're hearing about U.S.-based companies in sponsoring Formula One entries. Hello, Haas F1. Visa's long been involved in sports around the world. This would mark their first real foray as a major sponsor into Formula One. Cash App, on the other hand, has been a partner with Red Bull since 2021. So splitting off to become a title sponsor of the sister organization, not that big of a stretch. Again, don't expect the new name to be revealed until the team takes the cover off their 2024 racers, and Red Bull and AlphaTauri, or whatever their new name is going to be, still haven't told us when that's going to be. Visa Cash App RB. That'll take some getting used to.
That it will.
If that is indeed the name. We'll find out, and of course, we'll keep you updated because, well, that's what we do right here on the Championship Racing Network.
Yep.
Hey, it's cold here. I don't know about where you are, but for us in Alabama, it's not going to get above freezing for the day. So stay warm out there, whatever it is that you're going to be doing. We know that Chi-Town Mark's wife is still at home in Chicago. 18 inches of snow. Sorry.
Have that.
Yeah. Keep that up there, though, would you? Y'all have a great week. We'll be back again next weekend. We promise not to change our name either. We're still going to be the Championship Racing Network when we come back next Saturday morning. Y'all have a great week.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.